So I went into Across the Spider-Verse with the expectation that I would probably like it, but would just as likely feel exactly the same way as I did about the first one. I was wrong. Okay, you guys, Across the Spider-Verse. I have so many thoughts going around in my head, and I will try to put it into concise words, but you know how it can be. I just jot down my notes while I'm watching a movie. Then I try to formulate my thoughts around them. And these are just things that came to me as I was watching it. And then I was looking at some articles after I got home, because I felt like the art, the animation, while it was very much the same, it also felt like there was just something more to it than in the first movie. And then I found an article that said that this film was a love letter to animation, and that it used 6 distinct animation styles. And I think that's probably why I just felt there was something different about this movie. And I was thinking to myself, well, is it because I just forgot what the first movie looked like? And I started replaying the first movie not long before I began recording, just to refresh my memory about it. And I'd seen it multiple times because one of my nephews just was obsessed with it, but it has been a while since I've seen it. So rewatching it, it's true, the animation style in Across the Spider-Verse is different. Like, it's the same, but it's different because they use different types of animation, and they were sort of doing that already with the first one, but it just wasn't as prevalent. As you can see here, there's some animation that looks like a comic book. Then there's animation that is like Lego. I kid you not. And then there's also, one of the first things I noticed was there's like this long intro where it's going into Gwen Stacy's backstory. We get a lot about Gwen Stacy. This movie almost feels like it's almost as much about Gwen Stacy as it is about Miles Morales. So in that portion of the story, I was thinking, that background, like the background colors and the art, it looks like a watercolor. And when I was reading an article about it, it did mention that, yes, they used like a watercolor style art or animation in Gwen's world. So that wasn't all in my imagination. And I wasn't so sure that I liked it at first, because I was thinking there is so much stuff going on. Like, there are so many different things around you. It's almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Overstimulation of the eyes, because there's just so much stuff and so many things to listen to and hear, because there's just dialogue constant and all these things that are like throwaway types of lines. I know there's a lot of stuff I probably missed. I feel like this is a film that deserves multiple viewings, and that upon subsequent viewings there will be more things that I pick up that I didn't notice. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that went over my head because you're delving into the multiverse. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one Spider-Man, and that's Peter Parker. But I know the whole multiverse thing has opened up all these other dimensions, and so in some ways it feels like they've just gone a little bit cray-cray with it. There's just too much. If I had some cons, that would be part of it, and I'll get to that later. But let me just get into first the different things that I really appreciated about this movie. The voice acting. I loved the voice acting. I had forgotten how good the voice acting was in the first movie. But like I said, it's been a while. I'm so much more heavily into voice acting now than I was back in 2018. Now, I was already in the audiobook industry. I was already working with Jeff / Sound Booth Theater. So I was already into it, but now it feels like I'm deeper into it. And so I pay more and more attention to voice talent when I'm watching something that's animated. And I loved all of the voice work in here. I absolutely loved it. The dude who does Miles Morales is just such a great voice actor, and so much emotion in his voice. And also the chick who does Gwen, I know who she is. I'm not crazy about her actually as an actor. I did not care for her performance at all in Hawkeye. Did not. I think she's a better voice actor than an actual actor, or in front of the camera actor. I thought she did really good in here, though, with her voice. I loved the actress who does the voice of Miles's mother. Now, I believe she's an identical twin, but I believe this lady is the one who played in Dexter. Pretty sure, as La Guerta. I loved her performance in here. I loved Miles's father. I love this guy. Oscar Isaac did the voice of this fella. I think of all the people, of all the characters, all the new characters that we were introduced to, and just all the characters in general, he was my absolute favorite. I really liked his performance. I don't know if he's an actual Spider-Man from any of the comic books or whatever, because I know they branched out like that as well into the multiverse and all that. So I don't know how many of the Spider-Men it showed in here were actual Spider-Men from the comics, or if they were new Spider-Men and women made up for this movie. I honestly don't know. I just know there was too many of them in my opinion, but I really liked his performance. I loved also the family dynamic, the relationship between Miles and his mom and dad. Now, you saw that already. That was on full display in the first movie, but it really gets deeper into it with this one. He's 15 years old now. He's trying to spread his wings and he wants more independence, but he's also hiding the secret from his mom and dad. His mom and dad want what's best for him, but they're also firm with him. You know, they don't take crap. If he's being disrespectful, they're going to come down on him. And I really loved that they underscored the importance of family, strong and involved parenting, because certainly this country needs more positive representations of things like that. So I liked it that they show his parents in such a positive light and show his love for them as well. You know, he's got this irritation that he feels because, you know, teenagers, and how it can be like the attention between them. It's so reminiscent of the friction that can occur between kids and their parents as the children are growing up and they're trying to assert their own identity, and the parents are wanting to give that to them, but at the same time wanting to protect them because they're still young. There's still so much they don't know, and the parents generally do know best, but kids, they get to be a certain age and they think they know it all. You know, so it's just, I liked how it was handled. It was done in a lovely way. I loved these little moments between him and his mom, because there were some moments where they were talking and, you know, he wants to tell them what's going on, but he can't. I had forgotten about the scene in the first one where Peter Parker, before he died, he told Miles never to let your loved ones know, always wear a mask, that sort of thing. So he's holding on to that, but he can't stand that he's keeping secrets from them. So he's such a good kid. He does not want to disappoint his parents. He doesn't want to be disrespectful, but he's trying to protect them. And so it just causes all this conflict within him. Anyway, something else I liked about here. Well, there were some interesting cameos. You guys will notice them when you see them. There was also some stuff that I appreciated where they were heavily referencing Gwen Stacy and Spider-Man's past and how it didn't end well. And we all know what that's about. I really liked how they were delving into all of those sorts of things, and some of the comic book covers that they would show. I'd forgotten that they did that in the first movie. They would show these different iconic comic book covers. That was pretty cool. They did similar things like how they did with the first movie, where they would show, you know, the text boxes, stuff like that. That was all the same. But see, as you can see here, look at this. So like, that's the normal style from the first movie. But see here, this is like a totally different style there, because it's like these different places he goes to and the art style adjusts accordingly. Anyway, so what else? Oh, okay. So there was quite a bit of humor in here, some actual laugh out loud moments. I like that. I did feel like it got a little bit heavy-handed with it in moments where it was frustrating, because you're watching all this action happening and there's all this banter and dialogue, and I felt like there were some times where, at least one specifically, where it went overboard, it got to be too much, and I was thinking to myself, please stop talking. Let's just focus on what you guys are doing, because there's just so much, and you guys are bantering about stuff that has nothing to do with, I don't know, it just, there was at least one scene where it was like, that's annoying, please hush, stop. just get on with this scene. This character right here, I don't know if he's an actual real Spider-Man guy, but he was kind of funny. What was his name? Shoot, I can't remember. Started with an H. I don't remember. Anyway, his character was interesting. So the character of Spider-Woman. Now, I don't know why they made her Jessica Drew. They should have gone with the first Spider-Woman. They should have made this chick Valerie, not Jessica Drew. That was a little aggravating that they did that. I don't know why they did it, but that was something. I wrote down Jessica Drew, why? Maybe because that's a name that most people recognize with Spider-Woman, but I think that was a misstep for them to go with her being Jessica Drew. I don't think she should have been. Oh, something I meant to say also. Something I appreciated, this is tying around to something that I mentioned in my Out of the Theater reaction, was that I didn't realize how much of this movie, and I should have, because it's like a huge dirt moment on my part, how much of this movie is directly connected with events from the first movie. And of course, I realized, oh yeah, this movie is actually the second in what is basically a trilogy of films. So the first film came out in 2018. We've had several years in between. Thank goodness we don't have to wait as long for the last part, which is coming out in March of 2024. So we have about, 9 months instead of a whole 12? That's a lot of months ahead of us still, but at least not a whole year. So getting back to what I was saying, the 2018 movie was Into the Spider-Verse. Then this movie was initially going to be Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, and then Across the Spider-Verse Part 2, which is coming out next year. That's been adjusted slightly. It's still Part 2 of this, but technically it's really Part 3 of all these movies, because the third movie is called Beyond the Spider-Verse. So Into, Across, and Beyond. And I don't know if that's going to tie up this whole storyline. I don't know if there are going to be more animated movies with Miles Morales or not, but I really liked how they showed things that he got caught up in the first movie have a direct connection with what's happening to him now. I feel like that gives this film a seamless quality, connecting it with the first movie. And then when the third movie comes out, it's going to be going directly into that as well, because this does not end on, well, no, I'm wrong. I was going to say this doesn't end on a blatant cliffhanger, but yeah, it kind of does. It's really fascinating to me, the direction that it's going in. But I have to say, this film, it's lengthy. It clocks in at 2 hours and 20 minutes, though not counting credits. Probably about 2 hours and 10 minutes. Something I forgot to mention in my video was that there are no post-credit scenes, no mid-credit scenes. I did read up about that before I went in, and according to 2 sources, there were none. So I left as soon as the credits started. I have not heard any indication that that information was wrong, so if you don't want to stick around through the credits, you're safe to leave. Okay, back to the video. The first movie was under 2 hours. So this movie's long, and in some ways it felt kind of long-ish, but not in like I'm bored type of feeling. Just more of like there was this gradual build-up. There's Gwen's story, then you have Miles and his situation with his parents, and there's this new villain that's on the scene, and Gwen's coming back around again, and then you get about probably more than an hour into it. You're more than halfway through it where you start to realize, oh crap, there is some bad stuff that's going to go down because of things that occurred throughout this film. And you really feel the stakes being ratcheted up. And it wasn't that I didn't like it up until that moment, but it was when I realized this thing was happening that it was like, oh wow. And then you get further and further into the story, then stuff that is shown at the end, and you're like, oh my goodness. And I really liked how that played out. I liked there's this reveal thing that happens at the end, and I was really impressed with how that played out, because at first I was kind of confused, and then I was like, oh crap, this is really throws a wrench into things, and how in the world are they going to rectify this issue? And so that's kind of where the movie leaves off. The immediate situation has been dealt with-ish, but it's not completely been taken care of. So that's going to lead into or tie into the third movie directly. And I'm really curious to see how things are going to be resolved, because there's so much at stake and there's so much friction and tension and conflict going on. I'm trying to be vague, between the different Spider-Men because of what's at stake. I'm just really curious to see what sort of ending is going to be in store for Miles and his family and Gwen. And I am very much looking forward to the third movie. I didn't think I would have that sentiment, but I didn't think I would like it to the point that I did. I didn't think that I would come out of it with the thought in my head that this is so much better than the first one, in my opinion, because of the very serious nature of stuff that's going on, and also did not expect to come out of it with a feeling of impatience about the last movie. So I'm hoping that the last movie will not disappoint. I think that people who really like the first movie are going to love this film. I would be surprised if fans of the first movie are disappointed in this. You know, the cons that I had about it, they're not numerous, but I've already touched on some of them, and that is that I'm not super crazy about the crap ton of Spider-Men there are. I know when you delve into things like multiverses and different dimensions and all that, you can just go wild with it, and it does feel like the story went wild with it, but also there was some humor in that aspect to it as well. And there was some funny callback references to things that we're all familiar with. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. Think memes, a specific meme. It was funny. The theater was laughing when that happened. One of the things that also kind of aggravates me about all the different Spider-Man is that they even extended it to silly stuff like the pig. I wasn't crazy about the pig Spider-Man in the first movie. I could do without that. That's just an example of what I feel is them going overboard with all the different variations of Spider-Man or Spider-Mans or Spider-Man, whatever, it's confusing. But those cons are minor in comparison to my overall enjoyment of this movie and the seriousness. And with regard to the animation, you guys, it was so like just the animation of the regular, like Miles and Gwen, and I'm not talking about the cartoony looking animation. I'm talking about this style, this regular style here. The facial expressions, I swear to goodness, it felt like I was watching something that had been motion captured. It was so realistic. It was so realistic. There were times that it almost convinces your brain into thinking you're watching an actual actor play this part. And I was really, really impressed with that. I loved that. My eyes soaked it up. I loved every moment of those parts when it was focusing on expressions on their faces and the different little quirks and things that would flit across their face, and little turns of the mouth and the ways the eyes would move and little things like that. Just a body posture. And I went looking up, was this done with motion capture? I don't think it was. However it was they did this, I was super impressed with the quality of it. And I remember that a lot of people went gaga over the animation of the first movie, and I was like, it's okay. But I liked this so much more than I did when I watched the 2018 one. And I honestly don't know. So like that type of animation was pretty much the same. So I don't know what made the difference. Is it because now I'm so much more focused on watching films with an eye for certain things, as opposed to in 2018 when I didn't have this channel and I wasn't analyzing movies the way that I do now? I don't know. I just know that I have so much more appreciation for this film than I expected, and more appreciation, probably by extension, for the first one now. after having seen this. Is it the best Spider-Man movie ever? I don't know. I don't know that I can go that far. But I do like the fact that this was animated. I know they're talking about doing a live action version of this, but if they do, I hope they don't go to the crazy lengths that they went to in this film, because the stuff that they were showing in here, sometimes it feels like it's just best for certain types of films to remain animated, because you can get away with things in animation that you cannot get away with in live action. That's certainly the case with a movie like this. I wouldn't mind watching this film again. Maybe I'll go see it with Arturo whenever he goes to check it out. I think this is probably going to be a movie that ends up in my top 10. I did not have high anticipation going into it, but after having watched it, yeah, this is probably going to be in my top 10 for 2023. And I'm hoping that they can tie this story up just as solidly as they started it and carried on with it in this second volume. I'm just hoping that it can stay solid all the way through. I have a feeling it will. You know, the same people are behind it. I think it's going to be one of those very few trilogies that remains solid throughout and maybe even gets better as the story goes on. So those are my thoughts on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I am looking forward to hearing what other people think about it, but I have really no doubt at all that this is going to be pretty much unanimously appreciated and enjoyed by fans of Spider-Man and fans of the first movie. So, yep, those are my thoughts. I don't think I have anything else. I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We'll see you guys later. Adios.